And that was when I realized my first responsibility is to heal myself. So I started working on myself. I started with physical. I started exercising, taking care of myself there. And then which led me to practicing yoga, mindfulness, you name it. And then I enrolled myself in holistic health coaching, was I discovered the whole coaching industry. So through that process, yes, I healed myself physically, mentally, emotionally, and also spiritually, which is the last piece that I brought into the business this past 5 years.
Hi, and welcome back to Old School. Today, our teacher in class will be DeDee Cai, founder of Fit to Profit, a company that utilizes psychology, cognitive science, and holistic wellness to help entrepreneurs achieve peak performance in their lives and businesses. DeDee has 15 years of experience in business and started in her 20s working with her mom in a brick and mortar restaurant, which soon became overwhelming and not necessarily her American dream. So we get to hear her story today about how her dream and her vision came to fruition. Let's welcome DeDee.
So it really honestly started a simple story. I am a first generation immigrant, the only child. And growing up, I had an exact plan that I was supposed to follow, and I did. Going to school, doing really well, and landed my very first corporate job. And very soon, I realized for the moment I step into that cubicle that it wasn't for me. I honestly was disappointed. I was very disappointed. Perhaps my vision was it was completely different than what I was presented. Of course, I did what I needed to do to get there to know that I don't belong there. So my first position in corporate was short-lived for 6 months right after college. And I then immediately after that had an opportunity to start a brick and mortar business with my mom. And of course, prior to that, I actually was always supporting my mom from the backside of things, supporting her, running her salon businesses, etc. But honestly, I resisted being in business the whole entire time. I wanted to go to school to be a therapist, and I was going, and I had a choice of going to medical school or stay back to help my mom launch this business. I opted for staying back to be her emotional support as she was going through a divorce. Um,
Mm.
I'm the only child as well. So I definitely did that for the love of, for her, and also in retrospect, more of an obligation. You'll hear more in my story later on. But I launched, yes, the restaurant business with her. It was always her dream to serve the community. She is the great chef. So she was the head chef, and I was head of operation. And name it, head of everything. I was wearing all of the hats. I helped her build her operation, hire people. I was running the books. I was helping her with getting loans. We built that restaurant from scratch. So that was my very first experience with business. And I was in my 20s. I knew nothing about business. My short-lived experience with corporate was the only thing I had when we started, and it was quite an experience. I learned so much from it. At the same time, towards the end of our first term, which is the 5-year lease, I knew that it wasn't for me. I remember the moment that really hit home for me was actually I was in the be most beautiful place with the most incredible person, my husband, now my boyfriend then. We were in a cafe in Venice, Italy,
Ooh.
and I was completely distracted. I was sitting there waiting for my cappuccino to arrive, and it was sprinkling outside. It was the perfect movie moment, but I couldn't focus on us. I was actually staring at my phone, waiting for someone to call, waiting for a fire to put out. And that was the moment where I realized, wow, this American dream quickly turned into an American nightmare. So I needed to do things differently and do something else when I came back. And sure enough, when I came back, it took me a while to have this, to brush up the courage to have this conversation with my mom, my business partner. But honestly, when I did, she was very open to it. She's like, I really I wanted to build this for you. And so bless her heart, but I just said also, it's not my vision for my life. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. It's twice in a row now. Corporate didn't work. This whole brick and mortar thing didn't work either. And also right around the same time, my husband proposed. So it was a perfect picture to a new ending, right? An ending to a new beginning. And it was definitely this moment also is the pivotal moment that changed everything in my life was the week of our wedding. We were getting ready to celebrate, the most incredible relationship. We were together for 6 years, getting married, all of the things. Both of our families were very delighted for us finally, to tie them. But it was that week also when I lost my best friend to suicide.
Mm,
And she was supposed to be a part of our wedding party. I buried her July 4th, and our wedding was July 7th.
mm,
And she suffered from depression and anxiety. Well, until I experienced that was then I also realized I was suffering from the same, but in silence.
mm,
I was completely burnt out. I thought it was just because I was overworking, etc., and things like that. But I would never admit to myself. But of course, now it's okay because we're all healing. Is that I had dark moments. It was a matter of life and death, and losing her made me realize that, oh my gosh, no one, first of all, should ever have to go through
mm,
what I went through that week. And then secondly, this is what I'm meant to do. Because I wanted to go to school to be a therapist. That didn't happen, life happens. And that was when I realized my first responsibility is to heal myself. So I started working on myself. I started with physical. I started exercising, taking care of myself there. And then which led me to practicing yoga, mindfulness, you name it. And then I enrolled myself in holistic health coaching, was I discovered the whole coaching industry. So through that process, yes, I healed myself physically, mentally, emotionally, and also spiritually, which is the last piece that I brought into the business this past 5 years. So I launched my coaching business, and that's why Fit to Profit, we stand for really teaching entrepreneurs to be holistically fit from all areas through my own personal journey. And ultimately as well, the biggest eye-opening experience was my best friend did not see value in herself. Therefore, everything she did was to validate herself and to feel better about herself. And that was also part of my story, right? I did everything just to prove that I was a good girl. I was like, I knew how to please my parents, and I love them. I mean, I have the experience. I actually
you,
entering in my experience with building brick and mortar. So I basically fell into business development and I was teaching people how to start businesses. But really, 3 years in was when I realized that people were really all suffering from the same symptoms. They were really grinding and working on their business, but they were not working on themselves. They were not taking care of themselves. So once again, I have the same evidence, like it was in my own life, that we have to look at business, especially entrepreneurship, as a long haul, and it has to be holistic. Otherwise, it's not going to be sustainable. So that is why the last piece to it all for me was the spiritual piece when I really am like understood, like connecting the dots and why I'm meant to do what I'm doing is when I realized that I'm going to teach people how to really develop the foundation to have the right mindset. And that's when things started clicking. Most of what I was coaching my clients to do, yes, it has a tactical side and practical side of things, but it was mostly all mindset. So that is all focused now with Fit to Profit, is working with entrepreneurs, really building women up from the inside out, teaching them how to build self-worth so that way they can build their net worth. And our focus right now with this new project that's launching is from Worth to Wealth Accelerator. We're launching the beginning of January, is to teach women how to have the foundation to feel confident enough to charge what they want to charge.
Mm.
And because at the end of the day, is how we feel about ourselves and how worthy do we feel of our own very success. And it starts with knowing that to even price our services accordingly, right? So that's my story. Really, that's how I end up in my seat today.
Well, and what you just said at the tail end, there are other things I will touch on, but I run into that so much. I am a pastry chef. I have been. Like the 2008 crash turned everybody into a home chef, and they decided, that what I thought my worth was, they didn't agree. They could go over to the Fry's grocery store and get a cake just as good. And I was like, I don't want to argue with you. Don't let the door hit you. but but it is a thing because I'm a Christian, and so a lot of the ladies from my church that wanted like a wedding cake for their daughters or whatever, you feel this unspoken pressure to not overcharge or to maybe be a gift. And then there were other ladies within the church who were trying to go out on their own. One lady was going to do a salsa business, and she was going to start by going to farmers markets and different things like that. And every one of them struggles with being able to say this, what do I charge? What is fair? And they're looking at what's going on in the grocery store and then trying to make those comparisons. And I'm like, well, if you don't value and the fact that you bring special gifts to this. I mean, unless somebody is telling you and everybody tastes it and says it's awful, well, okay, then maybe you need to listen to that and rework the recipe. But other than that, it's not about, what's going on over here, mass manufactured. We started to learn, my ex-husband was an artist and he did specialty wall finishes. And the minute you put things like artisan and craftsman, people are all like, ooh. So if people understand that you're bringing a different experience to the table, yeah, I think that is huge, especially among women, to undercharge for themselves.
Yes.
And then they drive themselves out of business. Then they're anxiety ridden, they can't pay their bills, and they drive themselves out of business if they ever have the courage to start up. So I think what you're doing, I can't even imagine the marketplace you have and how, quickly you're probably seeing, just people clamoring for something like that.
Absolutely. And it's what's also interesting too is, granted, that's what we are focusing on in terms of our marketing, and what we do is so much deeper than that, Michelle, because I'm also a certified money coach. And because of my upbringing, being raised in complete scarcity with time, with money, resources, support, you name it, most of us have a very I want to say ill relationship with money.
Mm.
There's shame regardless whether you had too much when you were growing up or you had very little when you were growing up. Especially as women, we don't have that very healthy relationship with money. So therefore, whatever we do, we always devalue ourselves, trying to validate that we're better than that. It's a dichotomy. Is so interesting. And sure enough, the conversation is definitely, yes, uncovering what your money blocks are, really discovering your money personality that's associated to how your upbringing was when you were growing up and how money was discussed in your family and what your beliefs around that. And ultimately, the last piece is what I just usually you share on upfront, is that once you understand all that, then you can really say, wow, yes, I have this much experience, and it's not just a transaction. This is beyond, like, whether it is a pastry or is this a consultant service, it's the effect or the ripple effect lasts beyond that, right? Like
Absolutely.
they can purchase a pastry, but it's for a special occasion, for example, right? And it's from a homemade chef versus you go to whatever Whole Foods and whatever, and it's very simple versus like there's thought and care and love that is put into it. And that's often my conversation with our women entrepreneurs is like, let's look at your value. It's more than just the thing, because that's not the value in all of it, right? And
Right.
it's definitely the ripple effect and the everlasting, especially when it comes to teaching someone how to be confident. I mean, I had spent over $200,000, for coaching courses and programs and masterminds and all of the things. That's the value in itself. And then time, right? Like I've been, working on myself since I was in my 20s. And so that's years also as well, too. So a lot of time we have to have that conversation of why do you think that you can't charge that much? Let's see, okay, how much did you spend on learning how to be a chef? Or how, even some of my clients are mompreneurs, and I can name 100 things that they're masters at that other people don't have. Delegation,
Right.
multitasking, planning, like budgeting, like all of the things that moms do that are so undervalued, but we have to agree with you 100%, see our own value in it first.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm being told I had writing coaches for my book, right? And so then they told me to do a podcast, so now I'm doing that. Now they're saying I got to go speak. And somebody asked me to speak at something. It was an event they were kind of creating on the fly, and they wanted me to send over all kinds of information, including what I charge. I'm like, I hadn't spoken anywhere yet. And I'm like, I don't know. Do I get to charge? You're doing me a favor. I'm getting to go out and speak somewhere. And so this young man who was on my podcast, he's a financial planner. Anyway, he said to me, he goes, by virtue of your book, you're a subject matter expert. He goes, you're 62 years old. He goes, you bring to the table. He goes, of
Right
course you're
there.
an expert at it. He goes, don't you ever think that, why can't you charge that? He goes, you
Yeah.
charge what you charge. And if people want you bad enough, if they want what you know bad enough, then they'll hire you. If not, he goes, believe me, it weeds out the people who are hoping you'll just kind of come in and fill a slot, that you're a warm body. He goes, people who genuinely want to know what you're bringing to the table, and you're right. Because I'm sitting here and he recommended because I don't like big crowds very much. He recommended I do something more along a boutique retreat kind of thing with only like 5 or 6 people. And he goes, yeah, and charge $1,000 for a 3-day weekend or for something per person. And I go, 1,000? Who's going to pay $1,000 to listen to me? And he goes, you need to stop that right now.
Yes.
He goes, you need to come across like, absolutely, this is a deal. Like
Yes.
you said, a couple 100,000 over a lifetime easily is what we're spending.
Exactly. Right off the bat, 62 years. I don't have 62 years to, right? Like right off the bat, I don't have that. And so that should be like we call it in sales replication cost. You can go replicate that. Okay, wait 42 years, 2 years, that's up to you. But then, or you can get it for $3,000 for 3 days. You get to choose,
Yeah.
right? But it's exactly that. That was exactly my very, very first experience when I first graduated. That's what I was told. I was like, this is what you charge because you are just a new coach. And I was like, wait, yes, I am a new coach. I just got certified to be a holistic health coach, but I've been working on myself for years. I've had my own business. I've hired people. I know how to develop people. I know how to coach people. That can be, that's why I start. And interestingly, Michelle, I charge 5 times that, like when I first started. And I was like, no, I have more experience than that. I pay more for my experience and my schooling. I'm going to charge this much. And believe it or not, that's how I started my business. Within 2 weeks, I signed my 3 clients. And I was living in Columbus, Ohio at the time. This is back in 2015. So, and people were paying $1,300 for rent. That's what I was paying when I was living there. And this is almost half for what people would pay for rent. That's what I want to charge, which is 5 times what I was told, what I should charge. And people paid it. People paid it for a skill set that, they knew exactly where to go to start an LLC. They know exactly where to go to get all of their papers. They knew exactly what to do when it comes to putting the packages together. They know how to start a website. They know how to, all of the things, in a matter of a couple hours. So there you
And
go.
where are you going to get that? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I am a fond believer in the professionals for a reason and what they bring to the table. I don't do my own hair. I don't do my own nails. Don't do my own dry cleaning. That's what other people are for because I screw it up. And I get that I'm being a little silly, but it's the truth in regard to, I mean, think about it. If you believe that you want to go out there and earn whatever, I'm by myself, I'm divorced. So I have to be enough for,
Yeah.
whatever it is that my vision is for the future. And so why would I be less worth that because I don't have like a mate in the house bringing in the other half of the income or something? Why am I less worth that than what I bring to the table as who I am? So I love that. That's an awesome process. Now, you don't just work on that part of it though, right? Like you said, you're
Yeah.
holistic, so it's
Yeah.
you're
So,
working with them. So just a, kind of a brief outline, if you will, like say I sign up with you today.
yeah.
Now you go over my goals clearly or something with me, but let's just say, what does that include for somebody? What does the coaching include going
Yeah.
forward? I'm going to start my pastry business. Let's try that.
Yes, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, like our first, I want to say, chapter module to all of it is to really teach you our success principles. And there are 5. And no matter what we do, we don't ever derail from the 5 principles. So we talk about the success principles to start with having you build a ground foundation for having the right mindset. First of all. And then secondly, we'll go straight into really going through the core process of your healing your money relationship right away. Because we all have stuff that we have to work through, right? And so, yes, the first piece is going to really analyzing and assessing what your money blocks are. For example, we also have money personalities, just like we have people personality. For example, a savior versus a spender. And because of the way that we were raised, that we handle our business the same way. And so we get to understand that and why we are blocking abundance or money or clients coming to us, and then identifying our limiting belief system and really shifting that and changing that. And then the last piece is really going into, okay, now that you have dealt with that, now you have a new belief system when it comes to what is success for you. And then also what is how would you feel worthy knowing if you were charging X, Y, and Z? And then we're going to compile all of your experiences down into one place. For example, I can ask you questions about, okay, how old are you? For example, like what are your life experiences that is associated and also relevant to what you're doing? For example, yes, a pastry chef, right? But are you might not know so much more about a particular type of flour than anyone does, right? It could be a gluten-free, could it be almond flour, or like is it dairy-free? Like what? Yeah. So based on that, there's value there that someone have to spend the time or resource and money to trying to figure out on their own. So based on your experience when it comes to your craft, we analyze and also compile all of that, and then comes down to it. What is your experience with why a homemade pastry versus going to get a already made something, and really getting them to really understand the true value behind it. And then we can build their pricing, but truly based on what they want to create ultimately out of their business. Like you said, if you're the only earner of the family, what you charge, your pricing is very different than like if there were two incomes in a family. So it has to be a match to what you're looking to create as a lifestyle, because all of this is a lifestyle business ultimately, and it has to make sense for you of what you want to create as a salary or revenue. And then from there, we reverse engineer it in terms of packaging it a certain way. And there are so many different ways that you can package something, no matter, this physically, like a pastry box and or a service that will put you apart from other competitors because of the how you deliver it and how you really ultimately make the client feel, in the process. And so, yeah, we go through all of those different areas, but ultimately you're not just walking away with like, okay, I'm going to charge this much now, because at the end of the day, you have to feel confident stepping into that conversation and say, I'm charging $5,000 for a retreat. And be okay with, like, look them straight in the face with confidence, like, yes, this is what I get to offer, and I would love for you to be a part of this, versus, really, okay, could I really do this, and still have questions around what you want to charge. That's not what we do, is ultimately. So when even we are done with the program, every single time you have a new product or a new service coming up, you know exactly how to price it based on what we already worked through, and you already know from your, years of experiences.
That's awesome, because then you could take with that, say you keep growing, which I hope somebody does. I mean, you don't want to stop growing until the other side of heaven.
Yeah.
Is that if you bring more value add, then you have your mindset already situated to be able to say, I'm now going to charge this, and this is why. And
Exactly.
tough noogies, you got to pay.
Yes.
This is who I am. Yeah. Well, that's
It's
awesome. That sounds like an incredible process. And I agree thoroughly that I think a lot of times people don't go in, and I think all of these could be called like relationships, that your relationship with your customers, your relationships with other people. There should be a how there's premarital counseling. There should
yes.
be that kind of counseling, like you're saying, exactly what you're talking about, that coaching ahead of time, like mentally, how do you look at money? How do you look at managing? What is your leadership styles? What are all these things that you're bringing in? And mentally and emotionally is so important, because unless you're truly working by yourself and you're not even working with other people for the sake of your client, for a client, you need to understand that. You need to understand how you operate. And like you said, your mindset, or everything is going to pull you in 1,000 directions, and it's not going to get you anywhere.
Absolutely. Yep. So it's very foundational work. And the only reason why we have this program right now, just because I was firsthand, struggling from all of the things when I first started my business. I had the ups and down, like the feast and the famine, and it was just not right. And what I realized is, well, because I was raised with my father being the spender. So when he gets paid, he spends everything. My mom is the saver. So that's why I have like 1 month where it was like a $30,000 month, and then nothing for the next couple of months. Well, guess what? I also was raised that money is evil. So of course, when I earn the money, I have to spend it just like my dad, and then I have to get rid of it, because if I really thought the money is evil, I have to get rid of it, right? Because I'm a good person, right? So that is just a vicious cycle until I really nailed it by learning more about money and my relationship, one meaning, and wow, like, do I have a lot, to uncover there? Yes, it was fascinating. I feel like still, like you said, there's always that next level. There's always that next layer of like, okay, wow, now, okay, the investment. Okay, how am I being smart with the investment? Oh, okay, I'm not making that decision because of my fear of losing, money, or wait, it's my fear because I once upon a time made a decision and it didn't pan out. So am I making a decision from a good place, or am I making a decision from like my mistakes from the past, which is the pain and fear and doubt and disappointment? So it's all interconnected. As one person, all of our experience, it make us who we are, and it's really interesting. Money touches everything. Money touches business. I mean, and when it comes to business, it's everything has to do with money. And and honestly, like I said, I wish I knew about money coaching or have been through that process before I even started my business, before the restaurant, before, even honestly, there's no money education at all whatsoever, even in college, unless you want to become like a financial advisor or like you want to work on, as an economist of some sort.
Right.
Even then, there's not much education, when it comes to how do you handle money. And all of a sudden you're 18, here's a credit card. I can spend as much as I want and not pay back. So it's a lot. It's a very taboo conversation, but I really feel like that's where we need to go with things now, is have that first conversation. My kids, I mean, they already 8 and 4. They already have a little bit of exposure now, into like money, value of money, things like that. My 8-year-old actually has to add up the tips, for us when we go out for dinner and things like that. And we want her to discern, okay, how much is that? Do you think that's a lot of money? Things like that. And you have to start young. Like, and I didn't have
Absolutely.
that, so, and honestly, the stats that 70 up to 70% of Americans are not educated on how to earn, how to save, and how to invest.
They walk around like I have money left or I can spend it. There's not a concept, or I have more checks, that I must still have more money. My daughter was 10 years old and we did through our church Financial Peace, Dave
Mhm.
Ramsey's, and she was 10. And she's, a 10-year-old is capable of understanding those concepts and that information. And whether people agree 100% with all of the things that Dave says or does, it still was talking very well about staying out of debt, about how your relationship with money, about saving, about tithing, about giving, about whatever it might be. And she really listened to all of that. And so that was cool. But you're right. I taught a life skills class at her Christian school. It was a small Christian school here in Arizona. And even when I tried to teach them all, I brought a banker in to teach them how to write a check and keep a register. They were like, why would we ever need that? And I'm like, well, you might write a check somewhere, like to church. And they're like, no, you can go online now. And I was like, well, you never know when you might need to write a check, like to the government or something. But just even understanding a register, all of them just understand that when they go to the ATM and there's no more money in there, they just yell at mom and dad to put some more money in their account or something. And it's like, I think it's that old joke about when you get that first paycheck and you're like, who's FICA? You know what I mean? Getting to understand exactly a healthy relationship with money, that it's not the money that's evil, it's the love of it and the mismanagement of it, or the bad relationship with it. And I love that. I think that the process you talk about, I realize you gave us a snippet. We don't want to give away the farm. But that was awesome. And I love your story. I think I did some things when I was younger to help and support my mom. We had been beaten by my father, my brothers too, and she just was always grinding. She was always, like while she had a job, she'd always have another business on the side too, and so it was always I just felt some compelled, and I don't know that your American dream turned into an American nightmare as much as it just wasn't your American dream yet. Now you're living your version. But
Exactly.
I will tell you as a mom that I guarantee you your mother's gratefulness for that. And I think that's admirable, that kind of loyalty. Now, not to the exclusion of you being able to go do what your calling is, but definitely admirable. So one of the ways I end every podcast is by asking people, and you just said something, so maybe that was it, or maybe you have another, but what nugget, what one thing do you wish that you had known sooner or someone had told you sooner?
Oh my gosh, I have this question I even ask myself all the time because I have a journaling habit. And I get asked a lot too on podcasts, or you've heard probably, what if you had to go back and tell your younger self, what, one piece of advice? And I think it's a great question to ask. And that's what I want to share. If I had to go back to my 15-year-old self to tell her the one thing that she should focus on, and everything will change, and there won't have to be as much trial and error and all of the things, is that love yourself first.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I didn't get that. I didn't get that until I want to say definitely after the brick and mortar experience, was because I did everything for everyone else. I did everything for everyone else, for the love of everyone else, and things like that. Granted, maybe innately I was born to serve, which is totally fine, but at the same time, to the expense of your own health and well-being, that is extreme. And that's God didn't create us to be in bondage all the time and,
No.
always serving other people except ourselves. So if I knew that I can learn to love myself no matter what, unconditionally, I can do anything. And that's what my practice, my learning and healing has been. And that's what I live by now. And ultimately, it's really crazy. It has to be that, because so many of us, for example, struggle with having time for ourselves or taking care of ourselves. But if we know that we have to love ourselves first to do the rest of anything else, then we have to prioritize what we need to do in the morning. Just like I have my 4 F's that I follow, which is my faith, my fitness, my family, and my fulfillment. And it never fails. And I vow to myself that I always need to take care of myself, exercising, taking care of myself emotionally. So love yourself first. It comes from we all were created out of love. We are loved by our own father, physical parent, and also if you're religious and also spiritual, that, you are love. And unless we can feel that for ourselves unconditional, we can't share that.
Well, and it's so true. And even the modeling of the Trinity, I am a Christian, and so I do believe in a creator. I believe in God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. And the modeling of that in the family is that we're not to put our children above our spouse, and so first is my relationship with God, which is healing and healthy for me, then with a husband, and then your children. So your children can be looking at an incredibly healthy relationship and know that there's safety in that and there's security in that. And that's where the breakdown happens, I think, and we end up with more divorces and stuff. But you're right. You can't give away what you don't have.
Absolutely. We just can't, right?
Well, honey, you're adorable. And I love your story. And I will definitely put all the connection information. So if people want to, this new program you have is, you said, is starting in January?
Yes.
Okay.
January 23rd. Yep. Worth to Wealth Accelerator.
Okay. So technically, your episode would have come out after the beginning of the year. But what I can do is try and squeeze it into December so people can hear about it and head over and take a look.
Sure. Absolutely. Or beginning of January is perfect as well. So
Okay. Perfect.
You have more leeway with your schedule. Thank you so much. It's been so much fun. And yes, same. I'm a baby Christian too. And yes, it has been a journey and beautiful work for your end to have this workspace for us. So thank you.
Sure. Thank you for coming in. And we will hopefully hear from you and see you in the future.
Yes, thank you very much. Good luck with your
Okay.
book. Good luck with your speaking journey, etc. You're amazing. Absolutely. Yes.
Oh, you're so sweet.
I agree. I agree with your financial advisor. 3,000, 5,000 for a retreat is what it's worth.
Okay. I'm listening. I am. I need to, you're like you said, gotta love on ourselves and see that worth. Well, thank you for coming to class today, and I really just hope you enjoy and the information that DeDee shared with us today, and that you'll go check out her website. And she has some great workshops that let you know kind of where she could step in and be of best benefit to you. Her connection information will be in the show notes, or you can reach out to me at Old School or through my connections and social media. And I would just love to hear from you and have that engagement. If you would like, subscribe, comment, rate, ring the bell. We'd love that as well. Anything that can help further the stories of all my guests and myself. So we would just love that. So I hope you enjoyed class and what's going on here today. And class dismissed. This episode of Old School with Michele Vrabel is brought to you by Brush with Greatness, a Hawaiian artist studio.